My name is Isabella Elias, and I'm 20 years old.
My name is Andrea Llenilla, and I'm currently 19 years old.
My name is Valeria, and I'm 21 years old.
During my time being a freshman in high school, that's when I started to gain a lot of weight. My mom started to not be happy with the way I was eating, with the way I was looking, and she wanted me to try a diet with the doctor. I lost probably about 20 pounds. But after doing that diet, I just was so obsessed with losing more weight that I chose to eat less, and that's when my journey started. I would say that it has to do with the fact that I was enrolled into this diet against my will, and then I feeling pressure from my family.
Back in Venezuela, my family struggles with overweight. My mom had that culture from Hispanics that being skinny equaled being healthy. So she took us to nutritionists, and the first things they would do would be take off our carbs or even give us pills to stop our hunger. At home, my mom was always behind me and my sister that like, you guys need to lose weight. I did every sport you can imagine. I was there doing it not because I liked it, but because I needed to. My sister literally sewed her mouth so she didn't eat anything that was not liquid. My older sibling, she cut her stomach so she could lose weight. So losing weight has always been something that has been a pressure for me.
A lot of my thoughts that led to me having an eating disorder when I was older came from one time when I went to the doctor's office and the doctor said I was obese. And I really took that to heart. From that day on, I started measuring my food. I didn't start noticing my habits again until I was 14 because I realized that I started going beyond just like seeing how many times a day I had been eating. I started changing. I became more conscious of the concept of like what's healthy and what's unhealthy. And then I started becoming very obsessive with that.
The eating disorder anorexia is characterized by an abnormally low body weight, a strong fear of gaining weight, and a distorted sense of weight. About 9% of the US population has an eating disorder, or 28.8 million of Americans will have an eating disorder in their lifetime. Out of these people, 10,200 deaths each year are the direct result of an eating disorder. That's one death every 52 minutes. Researchers haven't identified one unifying cause for eating disorders. Instead, the interaction between a combination of factors, such as genetics, environment, and trauma, increase the likelihood of developing an eating disorder.
I'm Dr. Nora Hernandez. I'm a licensed psychologist for the state of Florida. During the last 20 years, I have treated especially adolescents, female, with eating disorders. Eating disorders are characterized by having an altered pattern of behavior related with food or eating, which is going to impact the amount of food that the individual ingests, and definitely is going to impact physical health and psychological and social daily functioning.
I remember like I would wake up, I had a journal, I would write everything that I ate. I would search up the calories on Google, I would write it next to it, and then I would just keep track of how many calories I was eating a day. Probably I always try to like beat my goal the next day, like the less calories, the more like I was achieving my personal goal. So I guess like I would start like eating 1,000 calories a day, and then I lowered it down to 800, 500, until eventually it got down to just putting 250 calories a day in my body. I feel like at moments it stopped me from doing certain things. Sometimes I wouldn't have go out or would have evaded that plan. If it came to the point that I really wanted to go to that plan, what I would do is go. If I wanted to eat something, I would eat it. But then I resorted to laxatives. I would go home and I would take like 6 to 8 pills and just let it all out.
I was tired of my mom telling me a phrase that always stuck with me and she repeated constantly was las gordas no van para el baile, which basically means the fat girls are not even relevant. So it was something that was constantly in the back of my head, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do something about it. The only thing I knew that worked was that diet I did in Venezuela back before coming here, and I was eating nothing. My breakfast was 2 egg whites, my lunch was 1 apple, and my dinner was maybe nothing or 2 more egg whites, something that was considered extremely healthy.
I started exercising twice a day, and I knew that things started to go downhill once I would weigh myself and that number would change. I would become very aggressive with myself, like mentally and even physically. The detox tea was when I realized that I was going downhill, because the amount of pain my body would go through with the amount of detoxing I was doing was unreal. That I remember I would literally sit on the toilet and say, like, is this even worth it? Because I would cry every day.
The restriction of caloric and nutritional intake caused by anorexia nervosa can have dangerous consequences if untreated, including dehydration, electrolyte imbalances, malnutrition, and organ damage. Additionally, about 26% of people with eating disorders attempt suicide.
Professional help is available. There's a lot of mental health professionals that specialize in eating disorders, and you need to be there for them. You have to listen. You have to feel. You have to make them feel important and emphasize on all the qualities they have as a person, as a friend, as a daughter, as a son, more than the importance that they put on the physical appearance.
You wake up every day and you already start fighting with not your mom, not your dad, no, yourself. Literally just yelling at her, and you just have a voice. For so many years, I just had a voice behind me telling me like everything oppositely to what I knew it was worth. I think things definitely started getting better for me, where I was like, dude, just let it go, by senior year high school. And then I was scared because I was moving by myself to New York, and I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go, because for all I know, I could just stop eating. So I tried really hard to work on my mental state, because I didn't want to go to a city by myself, because I knew what my body was probably capable of doing. It wasn't up until last year where I could finally sit down and not feel guilty about a meal. I'm doing good, honestly, better than good.
It's consuming, it's exhausting, it's something that never goes away. It's like having that voice, not even in the back of your head, in your head, it's like there. Everything that I do, everything that I see, everything that I think, talk, say, is dominated by this constant battle with myself. I perceive myself and my future as progress. I feel like a growth. I'm really aiming to, in years, look back and see how much I've overcame, how much I've grown since everything I've struggled with.
Anorexia didn't also lead to a nicotine addiction. It led to depression. It led to self-harm. As it is, anorexia is a way of self-harming yourself and your body. Well, after getting help, going to a psychiatrist for 3 years, I would say that now I'm really happy with my life. I'm happy with my body. I'm happy with my relationships around me. I wouldn't change anything that I lived through, because it made me mature in a way that probably I needed to, and it made me see life in a completely different way that maybe some people that haven't suffered through this don't see it. I guess I just realized that even if I was the skinniest person in the world, I still wasn't happy. Now I love where I am, and I love how much I've learned from that journey and that experience.